Hello, BookTube. I wanted to give you a little update on another one of the reading events that I'm a part of. I'm a co-host for Amour, which is a BookTube event created by the Bookish Brians designed to celebrate romance novels in all their infinite variety. I've been having a great time. Actually, I've been mostly lucky in my reading events for BookTube this month. Only one of them is letting me down, and that's not the event's fault. But with romance never lets you down. So I've been reading wide and exploratory everywhere. And the fact that some of my reading has been exploratory does not mean you can rest assured that I'm going to talk to you a little bit more today about tentacle romance. You've had quite enough of that. I don't want to traumatize you. And I don't actually remember what the event prompt is for this week or this weekend. I'm a bad host. I've just been reading willy-nilly. And I have two books that I want to show you today. They're not e-copies. They're print copies. I read them back to back, reread one of them back to back, just here on the fainting couch. I had a stack of stuff to read. So I wanted to show them to you. And the thing they share in common is that they are, in addition to being out within the last few years each, they're both really fairly new. So they're 21st century romances, which means that unless they state otherwise, they will be fairly explicit in terms of hanky-panky. Once upon a time, romance novels published in the general market had to be fairly explicit if they were going to be fairly explicit. They had to sort of let you know that this was red light romance fiction. Nowadays, they have to let you know if they're not. They have to let you know if their novel is so-called clean. But not only are these two novels fairly recent, but they're also contemporary in their setting. They're contemporary. My sweet tooth for romance is historical romance, specifically the Regency period. Whether it's an older Regency romance of the more straight-laced type that isn't really published anymore by any mainstream print publisher, or the modern Regency romances that are overwhelmingly popular, hugely popular. I haven't checked with Sarah at the Bookish Knitter, who's my expert on all things romance, but I would be willing to bet that historical roughly Regency era romances are still the most popular subgenre of romance that's out there, and I love them. Even the contemporarily written ones that are very explicit, I still love them. I think they bring out a wonderful air of playfulness in most of their authors, and I just can't get enough of that. But they're not the only things I read. I have branched out in my romance reading. I started with historicals because the person who introduced me to romance novels in a non-snobbish way said, let's take baby steps. You already know that you like to read historical fiction. So read this. Read historical fiction that is romance and ease your way in. And it worked. But I have branched out to contemporary stuff. And I've got two contemporary novels to show you. I'll read the descriptions. I'm talking about them a bit today. They are the latest romance reading that I've done for Amour. I don't want to block the beam, the true object of romance here. The first one is by Molly O'Keefe, and it's called Crazy Thing Called Love. With, again, these photographic covers that are now absolutely, used to be the norm. Now the norm is those dumb, featureless cartoon covers. A fad that I can't wait to stake through the heart. I can't wait until it's gone. But this is from, I think, 10 years ago? 2013. So 10 years ago. Let's see here. Dallas morning TV show host Madeline Cornish is poised, perfect, and unflappable. From her glossy smile to her sleek professionalism. No one knows that her iron will guards a shattered heart and memories of a man she's determined to lock out, until that man shows up at the morning meeting like a bad dream. Billy Wilkins, sexy hockey superstar in a tailspin. Still skating, still fighting, still her ex-husband. And the tailspin mentioned here is that his public image has suffered a number of very prominent dings lately, and his management needs an image rehab. He needs to rehab his image. And unfortunately, whether it's 2013 or 2023, one of the persistent little, I don't even know what you'd call it, old-style reflexes of mainstream romance novels. Unfortunately, it's the same thing with mainstream horror novels. In mainstream horror novels, bad people die. people who are jerks die, when you know as well as I do that bad people in real life don't ever die. They stay alive forever. They even become leaders of countries. uh, and one of those holdover ticks in romance is alluded to in the first line that we heard. If you have a female character who we're told is a star in her own profession, independently wealthy, and poised, perfect, and unflappable, that is viewed by the romance as a flaw that needs correcting. In Harlequin Presents novels, for instance, for decades, the male main character, who is, what was it again? Poised, perfect, and unflappable, merely needs a mother for his heirs. Those novels never even hint that him being poised, professional, and unflappable is somehow a defect of his character. Instead, it's just, that's how men succeed in this world. But if a woman is those things, then she needs a little roughening up. She needs a little humanizing. Kind of dumb, but even modern romance novelists tend to sometimes fall for that. Now the producers want this poster child for bad behavior to undergo an on-air makeover, and Billy, who has nothing to lose, agrees to the project. It's his only chance to get Maddie again, and to fight for the right things this time around. He believes in the fire in Maddie's eyes and the passion that ignites the air between them. This bad boy heartbreaker wants one last shot to be redeemed by the only thing that matters, Maddie's love. And I had not read this. I had it forever and ever. I've had it on my shelf since probably 2013. Never actually read it. Because it's autumn Amour, because it's the season of romance, I was sort of prowling I have all my mass market romances in one bookcase. It's double and triple stacked. It's piled all over. It needs to be bigger. I just haven't got around. It's a massive endeavor. I'd have to take all the romances off it and then take all the books off the slightly bigger bookcase where they would go and then swap everything around. I haven't felt like doing that. So I was prowling that bookcase. I was pulling books, the front line of books out to see what was behind them and thinking about them. And this sort of struck my fancy. Can't imagine why. So I read it, and it was pretty good. It's easy in some ways that I don't particularly like, in some ways that are no help to the romance genre, which is already snobbishly considered to be too easy by snobs out there who refuse to read it. So romance authors aren't doing themselves, or me, proselytizers like me, any favors to write a fairly simple book. I'm not saying simple in the sense that you know what's going to happen ahead of time. You, of course, know what's going to happen ahead of time. You can predict it from literally page one. That's not the point. In romance novels, or I would argue any other kind of fiction, that's not the point. But especially romance novels where the format, the formula, is predictable, and the genre is okay with that. as Tessa Dare, the romance novelist, was tweeting just a couple of weeks ago. That kind of expectation, if you want that in your fiction, that your writer breaks new ground, reinvents the wheel every single time, good on you, more power to you. But there is nothing wrong with not wanting that. Whether you're reading formulaic Western novels like we did in June on the Range, or whether you're reading romance novels, there's nothing wrong with that, with the fact that you can predict everything about this book on page one. It's just the execution. It's always the execution, but in this case, the execution seemed to me to be a little easy as well, and it doesn't need to be. That's just a case of the writer, and I don't know Molly O'Keefe. I'm not sure that I've read any other books by her. I wonder if I would know by the pictures. I don't know if... Okay, well, the other two here in this series, they're Crooked Creek Ranch novels. I didn't know that. Can't Buy Me Love and Can't Hurry Love. Those are the two covers. I do not recognize those, so I'm guessing that this is the first one that I've read. Maybe the others are a little bit more textured, a little bit more challenging. That wasn't a problem with the next book that I have, though. This is from a few years ago, 2018, I think. Yes, 2018. And this is by Jennifer Ryan, who's an author that I have read books of hers before, and this is called Dirty Little Secret, which this was a reread. I hear a siren in the distance. I know it's coming my way because they don't ever go anywhere else. There are all sorts of roads in Massachusetts, but they have to go on this road. Yeah. So I'm going to be screaming in just a minute. Let's just wait and admire the bean until this is over. Okay, there we go. And for those of you who don't live in the United States and occasionally send me emails saying, "My God, what kind of a country do you live in?" That every American booktuber that I ever watch has sirens blaring in the background in literally every video. Do the sirens ever stop? What kind of a country do you live in? I can answer that. We live in an ultra-violent hellscape. That's why the background sounds the way it does. But anyway, this was much more along my lines. This is not about a hockey player. This is about a modern day cowboy. Another staple of contemporary romances. The hockey players are inexplicably popular, but modern day cowboys are as well. This is about a rancher. I'll read you the back cover here. Uh, Noah Cordero is a modern day cowboy who loves three things: ranching, his younger sister, and his stepfather. John Cordero groomed Noah to take over the Montana spread where he learned to ride and work the land. But when John unexpectedly dies, he leaves half the ranch to a woman Noah doesn't even know, because John has had an entire second life. And John, for the limited amount of time, he's only in this book for about 30 pages, but he makes... Did you just burp? He makes a very strong impression. But anyway, Roxy shares Noah's last name, but not his blood. Estranged from her father, haunted by regrets, and eager to escape her notorious mother's past, she is forced to fulfill her father's last wishes. Inheriting means sharing a home with the infuriating, challenging, and oh so tempting Noah. But John doesn't make her just the owner of his ranch and the guardian of her sister. His hidden sideline is her worst nightmare, because he also makes her the new owner of the notorious Nevada brothel called the Wild Rose Branch, where she grew up. So the two of them are thrown together. It's one of those, circumstances throw you together type of thing. It's the most woolly of all contrivances, the conditions of a will. But it works wonderfully. It's a, what's going on here? Hey, you want to get down here, baby? Oh my God. Oh my God. There you go. I should probably want to get back up in a minute. This is in no way a more inventive setup than this. They're roughly the same. So it's a good illustration of what I'm talking about when I say that sometimes an author is on her game and sometimes she's not. And Jennifer Ryan is on her game in this book. The emotional relationships here, she remembers to concentrate on the whole texture of the world that she's put her characters into. So many romance writers don't. They're so intent on conveying the romance element, the central romance at the heart of their book, that they ignore the emotional reality of the other characters, all the supporting characters. And Jennifer Ryan does not do that. So this is, I mean, it's definitely a romance novel. You definitely, again, there's an element of strong predictability. There's no chance that these two aren't going to end up with each other, and you know that. You know that the author will throw some obstacles in their path, and she does, including one that I really didn't see coming. But that element of it is predictable. So it is definitely a romance, but nevertheless, I was reading along this second time, the first time that I read it years ago when I first got it. I think I got this from the publisher. Avon, yeah, I must have got this from the publisher. The first time that I read it, I was concentrating on the romance. You want to concentrate on the sparks that fly from the dialogue. You want to concentrate on the mismatches, the misunderstandings, the miscues that throw obstacles in the path of love. And I was concentrating on all of that. It was only the second reading that really brought out how much more work Jennifer Ryan is doing in this novel. A lot more work than again, she needed to do. So I liked it a lot more. I plan on keeping both of them. Both of them had an initial attraction for me that I can't imagine. I can't imagine why. But this is at least a little an attempt at artwork, right? Because you've got a background. This just doesn't have anything at all. It's just that. It's just two models in a studio. This is two models in a studio, but then some artwork is done, which I always appreciate. It's very minimal. Do we actually have a credit? That would be nice if I'm talking about the art. Yeah, the cover illustration is by Victor Gadino. So he's got, two models there, but other stuff as well that wasn't in his studio. And I just noticed that this has, there are other books in this series. So Montana Heat, Protected by Love, Montana Heat, Escape to You, Montana Heat, True to You, and then a book that is another Montana Heat novel called Tempted by Love. There's all of those. But I don't think this is a Montana Heat novel. I think this is much more. I think this is the first book in the series named after the brothel Wild Rose Ranch. I'm pretty sure. But anyway, I enjoyed this a lot more. I enjoyed reading both of these. I'm glad that I finally got around to this. I'm always telling BookTube that I have no unread books in my collection. It's mostly true. Most of what I have, 98% of what I have, is stuff that I have read. But every once in a while, I find something stuck in a corner somewhere that I haven't read, even though I've had it. So I read both of these. That is your Autumn Amour update. I have no idea what this week's prompt is. I'm sure that I'm in defiance of it, but I'm just going to keep going. So our next video, I will give you another update on where I have gone since with romance. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.